So, uh, so anyway, this is a good question, Samya. That hey, as we're trying to plan things out, like will Harsh have his own take? He almost certainly will. And so, my thought is, uh, I don't think that there's going to be any objections to. We dug into Salesforce and we looked at what the win-loss was, and we looked at the reasons for our wins and we looked at the reasons for our losses. And then we even dug into some of those deals specifically, and we found out that these were the commonalities for deals that involve CI, or these were the commonalities for deals that involve Agile, right? They tended to use this type of message generally. They tended to go to these personas generally. Like, no one is going to object to that work if we can present it, if we can do that research and we can document that. That's my strong feeling. Although like I said, I kind of welcome challenges to any of this kind of thought process. So that's kind of my thought, Samya, is that I think that Harsh very much wants to see what's going and kind of keep the ship moving. I don't think he wants to pivot the ship. He wants to keep it moving, and any new changes and insight, wisdom, experience that he brings, I think he wants those to be kind of incremental and that we all make those changes together. He shared a story with me that was very similar to that kind of language. So I feel pretty confident that we can make a decision now, and hopefully we don't end up in too many pivots in the future. How does that sound?
Yeah, I mean, if you feel confident, we're good, because we haven't had a discussion with Harsh yet. So I think we're good with that.
Yeah, and candidly, Harsh and I have not talked about any work stuff. So I haven't talked to him about sales plays. I haven't talked to him about, probably the most I talked to him about work stuff was I kind of said, this is a little bit of the history of the team. This is what things were like when there was just a few of us. There was Cindy and John and me and Ashish. That was the whole team. And then a little bit of the evolution. So but we haven't talked about specific programs or activities.
Just imagined a Quentin Tarantino film where we all have our characters and we're all coming in at different times.
Right.
Or a Zack Snyder film where you do that same thing, but it takes 4 hours.
True. That seems reasonable. As far as the research, does that mean kind of from here, should we get Alita to share some of her insights on how to navigate through these things and use are we going to be building our own reports? Are we going to have access to someone that can help us with that data? Because in my experience, that stuff takes forever and is tough, and they usually know what's the best way to go about that. Or do we just kind of dive in and roll with it? Because I've done both ways.
Yeah. So my preference would be that we MVC iterate this.
Okay.
Right. Let's not wait until we have everything perfect. Let's not wait till we have perfect knowledge.
Sure.
Let's make decisions with imperfect knowledge, and make the best educated decision we can.
Okay.
And I think, Samya, you and I chatted a little bit about this, where you've dug in and done some research already, but the data isn't there or it's not accessible. And so I think as we go through this process, if we can document those shortcomings, if we could say, here's a link to the Salesforce report that I ran, right? Or here are the fields that I'm looking at, and this is why they're inaccurate, or here's an example of why it's wrong. Therefore, we need to change the process, or we need to slice the data better. Maybe we need to just, and honestly, if you watch the last call, the one that I'm linked in the notes, I think this is a point Sakamoto brought up, where he said, yeah, we know there's some work that sales ops needs to do to, maybe even Hong said it himself, this is something my team needs to do. The data needs to get better. But so that's kind of my ask, is that we start with the data that we have and the tools that we have. And when we run into these roadblocks, that we just document that. So then we have a reasonable way to ask, to say okay, this is the outcome we want to achieve, and we can't get there. We can't get X because we need Y.
Sure.
okay, let's get together with sales ops and marketing ops and the data team and say, okay, like, this is what we think we need to function as a mature business. What's our path to get there?
Do we want to have do we want to make an epic and then link off some individual issues for us to do our research in our respective areas? What is there, or do you have an idea of how we'd want to do that? That way, if people come in, or if we do need to ping like, data ops or something like that, they can at least understand what's going on.
I love that. Parker, would you be willing to make an epic
Yeah.
that is,
and under product marketing, that cool?
I don't think you can make an epic under product marketing. I think it has to be under at the group level.
Good call.
But yeah, if you just make it epic, and then we can, have an issue, and then at least have an async point of collaboration.
Okay. Can make respect. Spell issue. Okay. Cool.
I think that there are a couple resources for us. I saw that there was a competitive, who added,
That was me.
okay. I was hoping maybe Alita added it because she has, so I think there are a couple resources. So one is the deck Parker made. Do you want to just like bring that up for a moment?
Yeah. I was going to add the link, the feature list link as well. Just 1 second, so that we have that, because I know that Alita's, or I know that we committed to that as well. Let me find it. Oh yeah, you got it. Cool. You want to talk to it? Or you want me to talk to it?
I'll just give it a brief overview.
Cool.
The nutshell of this, and Parker, correct me anywhere I'm wrong, is that this is based off of a process you ran at your last gig, when you ran an end-to-end sales play process that started with research and then culminated in sales plays, and those sales plays were data informed.
Correct.
And so some of the idea here is that we need to define like ideal customer profiles, target tactics, create some hypotheses, and then, viewing, through the data, validating or invalidating those hypotheses, or even through testing, right? So at some point, we might say, okay, well, here's some things we know are successful. Here's some commonalities in some, some messaging. Like we saw these 10 agile plays, and they all kind of went to this persona and this message. So we think that that is where it's going to go. So here we've developed this play, and we want you to run it. And when you run it, tag your ops with this thing in Salesforce so that we can track it. And we're looking to create, like we created 10 of these types of ops at, 50K each for, there's these small land ops, and we want to create 10 more, right? So our hypothesis is if we run this play, we'll create 10 more at this size, and then you can run and validate, like shipping a feature. And so anything else that you kind of would want to just highlight in here, Parker? Anything from your previous experience?
No, I mean, I'd say take a look at it and, ask some questions about it. But, this was all built around an exercise to identify what an ideal customer profile looks like, and then uncover the repeatable pieces or the repeatable motions inside that the reps can go out, whether it's the talk track or the scripts or the pains, right, or the current situation they're in. So, it's about you building the data and then building a model where, using these characteristics or the indicators that we have, you kind of get to the bullseye, and that's kind of the sweet spot. And so, yeah, it should be something that we can at least leverage from a process perspective and help us kind of guide us through the research stuff. So, yeah, and we'll probably have to adapt it. If you got ideas on how we can mesh this better with what we're doing as we go along, please do let us know.
So I think Parker's kind of documented some of the process here, like some of the steps, just at a high level. And then I think Alita has a nice, this is the output of her report. And let me honestly see if I can get some of the deeper notes from her but if you look at like, like she does this quarterly, she's done this a few times, and her sources were Salesforce, deal stories from the GitLab team, alignment points. I don't know what that is. She chatted with analysts at some points too but this is like, and we've done the same thing. So I think some of the stuff we're already doing, right? Like you have a sales play and you have a concept, and you have an idea, and you schedule some time with Gartner or Forrester to review it, right? Like we're already doing that kind of stuff. So it's not, I don't see this as like a hard pivot. This is more of like a augment and just acknowledgement almost that like, hey, there's a research component required here. Let's make that a little bit more formal. Let's document what we're doing on the research side that's inputs into the output of the sales play. And so, you can see here where Alita has come up with some of this data. What I can do is maybe on Monday, let me see if I can ask Alita on Monday to walk us through a Salesforce report. I'm happy to do it as well, to work one-on-one with anybody who hasn't like munged in Salesforce before. I think this is a muscle we need to build. I think there's a lot of things that we're like have high competencies in, and I think this is a competency we need that will serve us well as at this stage of the company and moving forward. This kind of data rigor.
Yeah, I think that'd be an awesome idea.
Cool. Any other thoughts or questions on just kind of like what I view as more of like an additive than a pivot on taking a step back and doing some research?
I was just looking at Alita's report. It's brilliant, right? I think she's done this before, and it's a great report. We tried to do something similar for GitOps, and I see a few challenges over there. One is the ability to identify deals that are either GitOps led or even have GitOps is very, very difficult, right? So for example, there are chorus calls where, some of the keywords that we have identified as related to GitOps are being called out, but we never see any of those in SFDC. So there will be deals, but then they're not necessarily tagged as GitOps. The notes on SFDC don't call it out as GitOps. So we can perhaps create, I have most of the data to create a similar such report for GitOps, because I also interviewed SDRs and SAL, so some of the win stories and some of the loss stories can be put together. But it's a very small sample size because we weren't able to identify enough deals that had GitOps in them. So
At what level, Sami, is this like where, so like before and just a waiver with that slide deck I showed you, before we went through that process, I had a data person tied to my hip, and like we went and put a field in Salesforce that the sales reps had to go and retroactively fill out that had like basically our value drivers or our use cases, and they didn't like it because they don't like to have to make an extra click, but we had to do that in order to get back and tag these deals with what we needed. So we may need to consider putting that ask in early to data now.
So we actually have that field. So when we started the use cases last year, John worked with Dara to, I think, put that field in there.
Cool.
Some deals have that fed, but not all of them, right?
Okay.
I think 90% of the deals don't have that information. So that really makes it difficult. And the way we've categorized those use cases also is very difficult to. We have a complete DevOps platform as one of the entries there. So it is possible that, a sales rep doesn't want to put in all the effort and just tags everything as a complete DevOps platform. It might be a security deal, it might be a GitOps deal, but they just tag it as a complete DevOps platform. So I think that is at least from a data point of view, that is one challenge that we will face. It's possible to kind of work around that by trying to map a chorus call with an SFDC deal. If there were some conversations on your particular topics on the chorus call, then can potentially assume or maybe reach out to the SAL and find out, did this deal actually have CI/CD or GitOps or whatever. But it's going to be a manual process for sure.
So so that field isn't mandatory then in SFTC, I'm
It's not.
assuming.
It is
Okay,
not
yeah,
mandatory.
that was what riled the feathers in my last gig. They did not like that, but we had to do it. Okay.
So yeah, so this is essentially, I feel like if we just show up now and we say like, well, we can't do research because we need the field to be mandatory, we may or may not get somewhere with that proposal. But I think, Samia, if you just even had like a Word document or an issue that just like had written down, these were the deals I uncovered, like this is how I know it's in Chorus, it's a GitOps deal, and SFDC it's not. And it doesn't need to be detailed, but just a little bit of documentation.
Yeah.
Then
I can share that. Yeah.
Yeah, then we could make a proposal and say, look, we think for the rigor of the company, this is a way forward that we need to have some documentation about, like, we need to have this field, it should be mandatory. What solution is the land solution? And it can't just always be it's a platform play. It needs to be like, what are they starting with? Are they starting with security, or like, what's the order of operations, so we can document it?
Cool. Yeah, and I don't know that I would recommend trying to do it mandatory again, going through it once. It was not a great process, and it did take some time and all that kind of thing. So I mean, it wouldn't be efficient. So I think this is the best way for sure for now.
Let me ask this, since we all have a gut feel, or even Sami, I've experienced exactly what I've done some munging, and I know the data is rough. Any other suggestions for workarounds or anything else that you kind of have done at another place that was successful, and just any ideas on, hey, we want to try to get some data around, this is the thing that works, and we need to categorize it so we could say, this is our win rate for X. Any thoughts or ideas on, we could, like, make the field mandatory?
When we've seen very similar, at least high level stats, in McBee's decks, we've seen things like this % of our deals are this kind of a land. Who did that work? Do we know?
So we do have things broken out by land or expand. And we do, I think it's in this tab here. Let's take a peek. So
I've seen stuff like 29% of our lands are SCM deals, or stuff like that. So I have a rough idea of what the numbers are, but who did that? Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a link to any of those decks?
No, of course I don't. I'll have to find it.
Okay.
But they're out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have seen, like, this is our 25% of our deals are land. I don't know that I've seen 25% of our land is SCM. But if that exists in a deck somewhere, then we can go and ask, like, where did that number come from?
That might have been on the product call recently, Brian. I think I was on that. I think it was Taylor McCaskin that mentioned something about like 50% deals SCM. I don't know. So I might have to go. I'll go back and look and see if I can find that as well. It may be the same thing. That was recent. I think it may have been on one of the last 2 product calls. So I'll go back as well.
I think I may have seen Dunk with those numbers in hand too. I'm looking.
And yeah, I think, Parker, to your point about working closely with the data team, I think that is an eventuality. I'm not optimistic that we get a resource like that ahead of time.
Sure.
And the rationale there, or my thinking, is that I just know our data team is like our team. They're very, very lightweight for the size company we are and the demands on them. And so I think if we can build and ask, then I think we can definitely justify like, we want to do this thing and like, this is what we could do on our own and we need data resources to do X.
Completely reasonable. Yeah, it was the SVP at the last place that basically said you're working with him, and so it wasn't really a choice. It's a hard ask. I completely understand, but I wanted to caveat it so that everyone knew.
Cool. Then this is I'm just going to put it to do like Brian to do track down slide deck. Cool. Then I think our next steps here are pretty clear. I'll have Alita do a little demo on Monday, or I'll ask her if she's willing to. If not, I'll give it. And then I'm also happy, like, you know, feel free to schedule one-on-one time with me, and I'm happy to walk you through SFDC. I've done a fair bit of munging. Anyone else that would raise their hand, Samia or anyone who would say like, I am familiar with SFDC and would be happy to one-on-one coach other folks on the team. It's okay if not.
I can do it to some extent, but I don't call myself an expert on this.
Okay.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Fair enough. I don't. I just. I think Alita's probably done the most, and so I'll
I've
see
made
if
a lot of
Alita.
broken reports.
Yeah.
I've made a lot of ones that are broken. That's for sure.
So just to, William, you mentioned about best practices from earlier jobs.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that. And one of the things we used to do was every quarter, we used to track the top 10, 20% of deals, which bring the maximum revenue. So between the team, we had actually kind of split by region or, you know, whatever to actually figure out specific deals, go through the deals, maybe work with the sales reps for those deals to understand what's driving those deals and so on. So in general, it used to be probably around 20, 30 deals. So spread across, you know, a team of 5 or 6, it would be about 6, 7 deals each person would be handling. So they have in-depth information about a particular deal. And then we can, you know, use that information to munch the data, both quantitative and qualitatively. So that's one thing that we used to do in my previous jobs.
I love this idea because we already do some of that to some extent, and this shows up in QBRs. I mean, this is effectively what QBRs are each rep comes and says, these were my top deals of the quarter. Now that's for like every single rep, but there's also, honestly, I know that Pyle has a meeting where it's like Pyle's top deals meeting.
Yes, there is this dashboard, Salesforce dashboard. Where do I put it actually? I'm just going to put it here. This is the SFDC dashboard. This is a sales dashboard which tracks the top deals for the quarter. So we can, you know, we can even use that to
Let's
drill down.
I'm going to add this as an agenda item for like the next call. Let's keep this as I don't want to set an action point for it now, but I do want to set an action point on this by the end of the quarter. I think like going into I think for at the end of Q2 we should have a list of Q2's top deals. And I think it's related to this effort. They're not completely separate. I think they're related. And honestly, maybe this is even a way to get at it. Maybe we just look at like the top revenue. Well, there's one other problem. This is why I don't want to get too much into it now. We should chat more about it on Monday, because for GitLab, the most important deals are not just the top revenue ones. For us, because our net expansion rate is through the roof, we have this like best in class, like if customers buy us, they will grow, and they grow a lot. So what does that mean? That means we really need to focus on new customers. And all that matters is getting that new customer, even if the deal size is very, very small. So right now, the focus for the business is this first order logos, right? And the reason for that is because our net expansion is so amazing. So I think there is value in getting the top deals of the quarter or the top deals, just knowing what those are. But it needs to be coupled with some amount of like, and this is how we're getting new customers.
Yeah, I think we can slice that based on what we want to focus on, either for a particular quarter or, let's say in a particular quarter, we want to focus on mid-market, right? And say that, hey, we want to understand how we are going to market in the mid-market segment, which use cases are working well, what we can do to improve. So it just doesn't have to be the top deals. It could be a specific focus area for that particular quarter. And then, between us, we could share that and then share experiences and then come up with some kind of a report that's required to help us guide further.
Cool. The next thing I want us to chat about today, we're starting to run short on time, but Samya, you and I had chatted, you'd made a proposal to say like, let's focus on SDRs because we can drive immediate results. And this is exactly what I want to do. Like, this is exactly what I think we all want to do. Like the idea, this is kind of what I'm saying, like, hey, there's some balls up in the air, but like, we can make decisions with imperfect information and we can just look around and say, what's best for the business? And if we're always acting with that kind of bias, we're not going to have too much trouble justifying what we went and spent time on, or, aligning. Like, other people are going to be like, oh, good. I'm glad you didn't have to go and get a bunch of alignment. You just did what was best for the business. So one of those ideas is that the SDRs, actually, Samya, I'll just kind of like, would you mind just kind of pitching your idea that you just to the team?
Yeah, I can do that. So one of the things I did as a part of the GTM motions was also to interview a few SDRs as well as some SDR managers, right? To understand what is it that is kind of missing from their workflow. Are they able to have a specific conversation? So let's say a GitOps conversation. Based on some of the chorus calls that I had listened to, none of the SDRs were able to have a GitOps conversation. Obviously, we've never probably enabled them on it. But every single time, they just used to kind of go with the standard pitch of single application or security, without really listening to what the customer's point of view was, right? So a customer might be saying that, hey, I want to do infrastructure automation, but the SDR would say that, hey, GitLab is great for everything. It's a single application. It can help you for everything. Not really actually talking to the customer's pain point. And I first listened to those calls, then spoke to the SDR managers, and I understand that they don't have a standard process, right? They don't have call scripts across the board. They don't have outreach sequences that can help SDRs. And this becomes important specifically for commercial SDRs because they have to churn customers really, really fast, right? They don't have the luxury of an enterprise SDR who's able to then call in a SAL or an SA for a conversation with the customer, right? So a commercial SDR needs to churn a lot of customers on a single day. So if they have to actually start reinventing the wheel for every conversation that they need to have, then it becomes a bit of a challenge. So finally, the conclusion of all of these discussions was that, yes, there is a gap. They also have a gap in terms of subject matter expertise, and that's where we will come in. The immediate ask was, one, to go over the outreach sequences. If there are no outreach sequences, then maybe come up with some outreach sequences that would help. And the second thing is to help them with some call scripts that would help them have the relevant conversation for a particular use case. Now, I had a discussion with William. I think since we haven't prioritized this for Q2, we might want to do it for Q3. But I'm going to kind of try to work with the SDR team to kind of pivot the pilot this to actually see uh, if if there is a problem that we can solve and what results we can drive because of that. I'll pause there and hand it back to you.
So I have been hesitant in the past to like double down on this. And the reason why is because every SDR team kind of managed their own things. Just like Samia said, there wasn't like a unified, this is the template we use everywhere. And they wanted that to some degree. They wanted SDRs to be able to do what it took to get the deal done, right? And to adapt to regional differences, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The challenges, of course, is if there's 100 different outreach emails being sent, you can't really say like this one's performing well or it's not. But if you have like, these are the 4 standard templates, you know, or these are the 2 standard templates for GitOps, which one performs better? These are the 2 standard templates for CI or for security, right? So candidly, we've chatted about this. Parker, who were you working with on SDR?
I mean, I've worked with a lot of SDR, like Matt Malcolm, Hannah, and most recently Megan Thatcher. But I've been pretty plugged in with them. Yeah.
Megan is really passionate about this. So she's recently gotten into a new role, and part of her charter is this exact thing, standardizing the outreach templates. And so I think this is an opportunity for us to get involved. This is kind of, we didn't plan this at the beginning of Q2, so I'm not necessarily saying like, go drop everything and go start doing outreach sequences, but 100% Samia is doing it as part of her sales play. And I would encourage anyone else, like, this is probably a place where like, if you're just looking for some extra time to go do something, working with SDRs, this is probably going to drive some results quickly, right? So if you want to drive some results quickly, this is a place where we could probably see like a quick improvement on, you know, you can just imagine going from customer conversation of like, yeah, I'm the, you know, director of platform operations at such and such a company, and I'm really interested in infrastructure as code, infrastructure automation. And then our response is like, let me tell you about our all-in-one for everyone. Like, it's going to fall on deaf ears. But if we can enable them with a call script that's like, you know, oh, let me tell you, like, here are 5 things to say about security to the security person or to the security-minded developer, director of DevOps or whatever, right? Here's your call script. Here's your outreach sequence. Like that will like we could have a strong confidence that our hypothesis that would drive more immediate results. So anyway, just sharing that as well. I think Samia, you're doing as part of your sales play, but wanted to raise it to the rest of the team. Cool. Any other thoughts or questions on SDRs?
Just wanted to add a quick note there, William. I think there are 2 people on the SDR team side. One, I think Megan is dealing with land motions, and it used to be Elsha was dealing with the expand motions, and they are both trying to standardize that. So we probably need to work with both of them.
Who's on land?
Elsha is Megan is on land.
Megan. Okay. Cool. Let's come back to this in a moment. Yep. I'm just going to jump ahead to contribute. I just wanted to point out that if you haven't read the contribute FAQ, here's a link to it. And I don't want to lead you astray. Definitely read it on your own. But my synopsis of it is I don't think that there's a lot for us to do, or I think there's only one to do now. And I think all of the other to-dos are like once registration opens, then they start booking your flights for you and that kind of a thing. But the one thing that you might want to start looking into is a travel visa for the Bahamas. So it's in the FAQs that references it. Here's a direct link to the site. And anyway, I just wanted to raise that to the team. The competitive feature list. Is anybody still? I know Cormac still has to get his in. Is everybody else done, or is anybody else still working on adding their features?
I'm still working on it. I'm making
I'm
progress.
not done yet. Yeah.
Yeah, mine's open too.
Cool. What is a reasonable timeline to have your features in the spreadsheet?
Oh, I was doing it in the issue.
I just need to be cloned. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I know this is why I want to ask, like, what's reasonable?
I don't even know at the moment. Anybody know HTML? That would be a big help for me if somebody could help me debug some HTML.
I do. I'll help you out, Cindy. I've got some open slots today. Let's do that. How about Brian, what do you think? What would be a reasonable due date for you to say, like, I can get my 15 features together by date X?
The only thing that slipped is I was actually going to talk to my product counterpart about it, and we lost our call. So I can just call it. I can also do that. So I can get it done this week if you just want to get it done. I'm very deadline driven at the moment, is the fact of it. So if you set a deadline, I'll hit that.
Okay. Can you put in some features, and we can always iterate on them, but could you have 15 features by end of day Friday?
Yeah, I can totally do it.
How about Parker? Would you be able to do that?
Yeah.
And Samya?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay, cool. And then Cindy and William
Next week.
to work. Yeah, and I know I've added more things to your plate, and I know other folks have too. And so I think that's reasonable. Let me see how much I can help you. I can definitely help you with the HTML.
You can have me in the batter's box if you need extra help. I mean, I can help with that thing too.
Cool. Who added number 5? Maybe Cormac.
Maybe in Cormac, yeah.
Okay, so we have an alliances VP. That's exciting. I didn't even know this. This is so
I just saw it roll in, but yeah, otherwise I didn't know either.
This is
awesome.
Okay, so what's
exciting.
confusing for me is I thought alliances was in marketing, but Nima is actually reporting into McBee. So is that going to move?
No. So alliances has for a long time been part of sales. And if you remember Brandon Young,
Yeah.
he I think he initially reported to Sid for a short time, and then he reported to McBee for most of his tenure at GitLab. So this is the new Brandon, right?
Yep.
Yeah, this is exciting. So Colleen is head of alliances marketing, I believe, or head of partner marketing.
Yeah, I had a chat with Colleen. She's good.
Yeah. Colleen is awesome. So she is partner marketing for both alliances and channel. And then Nima, who looks like is our new VP of alliances. So this is who like Mayank and team will report into Nima. And
Nice.
this is really exciting that we have a new head of alliances. So
That's super cool.
Brian.
I just liked that somebody did that. It was funny. Pyle on the product team call, he starts out by saying, "I'm looking to narrow the guardrails of what sales plays look like," and I'm like, "You're talking to the product team." But that's how much the sales play issue was on his mind. he opened his discussion to the product team by talking about sales plays, but he was actually there to present what's in this deck. And I thought, well, that was like a nice to have takeaway from all the QBRs. Was here, everybody in product, here's what you should care about from QBRs. And it would be nice if we're going to do something like the QBR task again, if for the marketing team there was something like that too, where we could just say in 5 or 10 slides, here's marketing team what you should take away from the QBRs. I just liked that they had it, nicely summarized for product.
So, I'm confused, and my apologies. If you can back up one step, what was the context? Was a call, or this was a deck that Pyle put together?
The latter, and first it was in Slack, and then it just got added to the product team agenda. So it became about 10 minutes of the product team call.
And
A
so
regular call.
Pyle made the note in Slack.
I think actually Scott may have made the first note, or
Scott
he may
put
have.
a note in Slack. Then
Did I link to
added-
it? He may have actually quoted Pilot. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure. But I just liked that it was done. I thought it was a nice amount of takeaway. It was actually like a useful amount of takeaway for everyone in product. I thought everyone in marketing should have some amount of takeaway from the QBRs, which maps to what we were saying earlier as well, which is like, especially if we're going to go through that whole process, let's surface the really important stuff, or the stuff that we heard 10 times and that kind of thing, the patterns.
So this is you saying in Pyle's QBR, in his leadership QBR, he had a summary. Scott attended that QBR, liked the summary and linked to it in Slack, and then added Pyle to the product call.
Yeah, and I thought it was useful even in some follow-up conversation with folks in product. I thought it was actually useful to them. But like, that's good. Whether they're going to change decisions or it was validation or it was a little bit of both, but it just felt like something we should also have in marketing. It could be the same list of stuff, but
Like this is a summary takeaways from QBRs.
yeah. And it's something we could do. We're sitting through them. We kind of do it anyway, just chatting to each other. But I don't think we need to do it if it's sort of being done. We might just need to filter it or recenter it for marketing purposes. But
Okay, my thought on this is that we make this a Q3 goal. That with Q3, like, I don't want to go back to our Q2 QBRs and say like, let's derive a summary out of it. But I think that looking ahead to the next set of QBRs and how we engage with them as a team, this would be an artifact we aim to generate. Does that sound right?
yeah.
Cool. Is this public news, Parker? Can I put this on YouTube?
We will be making our public announcement via press release later today at 9 a.m. Pacific, and that was yesterday. So as long as we announced it,
All right, awesome.
which I can go check our LinkedIn or something and confirm.
We were planning to, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I just checked out their website and saw what they were about. Looks really, I mean, it looks right in line with where we're investing, in that side of the product house as well. So,
and look at that. It's on TechCrunch. Love it.
okay, cool. So we're good.
Boom. Cool.
William, just so you know, you were sharing your screen the whole time. So
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, should be the notes, and all this stuff should be public, right? I don't think I didn't click on, like, when I clicked on the Salesforce report, I didn't show it. So hopefully everything in this video and that I've put on my screen is YouTube worthy.
I think we're okay.
Yeah. So hey, thank you, team. Let me just take a quick peek here. Cindy, do you want to look at that at your HTML stuff?
Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. I just pulled out the offending part and got it to run, and I will go back and re-add it as a separate MR. I updated the DevSecOps page and needed to get it out there because the MQ stuff just went live this morning. It's driving people to it, and it was making me nuts because I couldn't get the stupid syntax error. But so I just removed the offending part, and we'll go in MVC2 and re-add it. So
Hey, sounds like a plan.
Do you Cool. I want to let everyone else on the call, run and let me stop recording.